Note the color changing power reserve for the alarm. And the on and off function. Alright, that was a fun message from my sponsor. Welcome to our channel and thanks for logging on. If you enjoy these videos, do me a favor and subscribe to our YouTube channel right here at Watchbox Reviews. I'd appreciate it, and I update daily. If you enjoyed this watch, I don't blame you, and you can purchase it on thewatchbox.com, buy, trade, and sell luxury watches on our website, thewatchbox.com. I've reviewed this watch on the channel recently, but as I love the piece, and this one is fitted on a hitherto unseen Zenith factory rubber strap, I thought I would review it again in this alternate configuration for your viewing pleasure and mine. Today we're discussing the circa 2012 model year Zenith El Primero Pilot Doublematic, an El Primero movement with a grand date, an alarm featuring on-off function, and a variable color animated power reserve. The watch also has the traditional high-beat El Primero automatic column wheel chronograph. The best of all possible worlds arrives when you consider it also features all possible time zones of the world. So this is a multi-complication in stainless steel that, despite its size, wears well on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist. It's a 45 millimeter round case. Obviously that doesn't include the many individual crowns and pushers on the case flank, and by the way, the watch has 6 of them. The timepiece is reasonably slim considering all that's contained within, as you'll measure it 15.6 millimeters thick, but there is enough of a step to the case flank that it should slide underneath jacket cuffs. Lug to lug, the watch measures 53 millimeters, and I need to qualify the fit because going from the leather strap previously reviewed to this rubber strap, the fit does change a little bit on a smaller wrist. I recommend putting the watch on the conventional strap if your wrist is smaller, because although this strap maximizes the watch's aquatic potential as a surface swimmable watch, nevertheless it does have a little bit of a fight and flare. The end of the strap conforms to the profile of the case, which means it looks very handsome and integrated. All of a piece, no daylight between strap and case, but there's a little bit of stiffness as it flares out as it exits the lugs. On both sides, the strap has a bit of a tendency to resist the curve of a smaller wrist like mine. I'd say if your wrist is smaller than 16 centimeters circumference, wear it on a strap. Then you should be good down to a wrist size of 14 to 14.5 centimeters. That said, the strap is very nice. Outboard, there are small character lines, a tiny step to add some definition to the broad swath of matte black. Of course, it is very substantial and it conforms to the case flank. It also nicely matches the hoods of the lug, so it doesn't appear to be sunken and it doesn't really rise above the lug profile. It is nicely branded, and on the underside, you will note likewise, the clasp remains a double deployant in steel, all of full polish, with trigger actuation, so this one not friction fit, giving you that extra measure of security in that you must depress the triggers to open the clasp. Double deployant, meaning it wears better on a small wrist than a single full deployant. The case is simple but strong. You can see the transitional bevel from the hoods to the flanks of the lugs being one of the few nuances in an otherwise understated polished steel case. It's a shape we've come to know well on the Chronomasters since 2010. Now you will note, I mentioned there are 6 individual controls. There is winding and setting for the alarm. There is the on-off toggle that is coaxial with the winding and setting crown. There is a crown that's used for changing your world time reference city. You can see I'm currently in Philadelphia, so the east coast of the US, my reference city at the index of 12 is going to be New York. And you can see it is perhaps suspiciously set to just before or 6 minutes to 5 a.m. as you're looking at the night portion of the day-night 24-hour reference ring, which moves counterclockwise. I'm going to admit I'm not filming this at 5 minutes to 5 in the morning. Otherwise, you can see how the system works. As there is one reference city for each of the world's 24 principal time zones, you line up the one that represents your time zone with the index at 12, and then you read the hour that's adjacent to your city. It moves counterclockwise, so you actually look at the city that is closest in a counterclockwise direction, which is why from New York I look to 4 rather than 5, because it's almost 5, but I can see it's 5 minutes before the hour. It is 4:55 in New York, and the same works for every other city. Just remember, the semicircles, white for day, black for night. The timepiece features a small register that is beautifully covered by a bolt-fixed cover with its own pivot jewel for the display that changes size and color as it loops through its aperture during the process of discharging the alarm power reserve. At full wind, the alarm will run for about 30 seconds, and yes, it's potent enough to wake you up, so it passes the most important test of any wristwatch alarm. You'll note that there's a small bell in either red or green that changes as you actuate the on-off function for the alarm, and then you'll note the watch features an unconventional double-digit date, and the way this works is you have two different discs that are flush mounted, and there is a quick set. This being a Zenith Primero, the outermost position of the crown actuates the date, the intermediate position sets the time, so you can regale your friends with this rather animated and oversized date. From a practical standpoint, it is far easier to read than a single-digit date. Of course, you still have a chronograph, chronograph seconds, chronograph minutes up to 30, and the watch is part of the Pilot line, so it does have that aviator's aesthetic born of a slightly instrument-inspired dial. But what sets this one apart is that the actual numerals are solid blocks of superluminova that are three-dimensional and applied. So not only do they create great depth about this matte black dial and high contrast, but they also make for a spectacular lume shot that's to come. Very conventional Chronomaster profile with lozenge-shaped extended polished pushers and Zenith star crown. The caseback is remarkably good looking for an automatic chronograph. Many of these are fairly nondescript, with most of the action hidden beneath some sort of winding bridge and rotor. Here you actually have a great view of the lateral clutch of the chronograph, the blued screws, the polished screws, blue for adjustment of the mechanism, polish for assembly of components. The watch features its traditional high beat, 10 beat per second, 36,000 vibration per hour El Primero escapement, bidirectional automatic winding, and a 50-hour power reserve, plus or minus about 2 hours. This is a column wheel chronograph, and I'm going to do my best to put the column wheel on display. You can see its crenellated towers, its levers and horns just below my finger, and as I actuate the system, because of the lateral clutch, I mentioned this is a good-looking chronograph. You can see it moving out of engagement and into engagement. It's driven off the fourth wheel of the going train. By the way, 41 joule, decidedly non-standard El Primero base. What's nice is that when you disengage the chronograph, because it does feature such an open architecture, and do my best to get this, you're able to see the recentering hammers of the chronograph acting on the heart cam at center when you reset the mechanism. Big, beautiful, and bold. The El Primero has always been a good-looking movement, and this remarkably deluxe caliber 4046 is no exception. 50 meters water resistance, sufficient for the surface, but I wouldn't take it diving. This is an all-arounder with almost too many complications to relate in a single video. An entire box worth of complicated watches in a single case. Maybe we should be calling it a compact complication rather than a big 45, because any other company would need 2 or 3 watches to pack in this much functionality. See and own this Pilot Doublematic on the watch box. And we're back with the Zenith Pilot Doublematic, a watch that never disappoints and always gives you more. You can see how the three-dimensional solid blocks of luminova animate the dial. It's even better in person. Don't take my word for it. See it and make it yours on the watch box.